Hello, my name is Frank Godisolo. I'm an analytics client architect with IBM, and in today's demo we're going to be taking a look at how to connect Cognos Analytics to a Netezza data source in order to build a dashboard and visualize your data. So in order to do that, I'm running a virtual machine with Netezza emulator version 7.2.1 on my workstation, and I'm also running Cognos Analytics version 11.0.6 on a separate server. So the first thing you need to do is ensure that incoming connections into your workstation are forwarding the connection requests into the Netezza software emulator. So to do that, the first thing you need to do is determine the IP address of your Netezza virtual machine. So you can do that with the ifconfig command, and I can see that it's 192.168.25.128. Now I've already set this up, but in order to help you, I'm going to show you how to do that. You would click on Virtual Network Editor. That would bring up the types of connections. Under NAT, we want to set that up and configure the settings. And essentially what you can do here is you can set up port forwarding. The port that Netezza listens on is 5480. So basically you just want to add some port forwarding from your workstation into the Netezza virtual machine, which is that IP address we saw earlier, .25.128. So once you've set that up, the next thing is to find out the IP address for my actual workstation running the software emulator, the virtual machine. So I'm just going to open up a command prompt, and with the ipconfig command I can find out my IP address. I can see here it's 192.168.1.113, and that's what I'm going to use to set up Cognos to look for the Netezza server. So this is a Cognos Analytics screen. The first thing I'm going to do is click on Manage to set up a new connection, and I'm going to click the plus sign. I'm going to scroll down and choose Netezza as my data source type. Here we go. Now I need to create a user ID to sign on, so I'm just going to click a plus sign here, set up my Netezza ID. This is just the default user ID for the Netezza emulator. Click on Save. I'm going to save this connection as Netezza. Now I know my port number and my host. My host was the IP address for my workstation, and my port is 5480, which I'm forwarding from my workstation into the Netezza emulator. I'm going to change the database name here to test, and that's all you have to do to set up your connection string. So I'm going to hit save again, click on test. I see that I got a success here, so everything looks good. I can now close this, and I can start to build my dashboard. Now before we do that, let's take a look at what the database table looks like. Now before we start creating a dashboard, let's take a look at the table and see what we can work with. I'm going to connect to my test database, and I know my table is called satisfaction. This table is evaluating the survey results of customer satisfaction from different airlines. This is a hypothetical airline survey. So you can see we capture satisfaction, the status of the passenger as far as their air miles program, the age and age range, the gender, the travel type, whether it was business or personal, and the airline name. So now that I know this information, I'm going to go back to Cognos Analytics. The first thing I need to do is create a data module. The data module lets me format the table or multiple tables that I'm going to use so that Cognos understands what that data consists of. So what I need to do is select data servers and use the connection that I just created called Netezza. I'm going to click on Manage Schemas, and I notice that it actually doesn't know the format of my tables yet. So the first thing it needs to do is understand the metadata that makes up that table. I'm going to click on the three dots and click Load Metadata. Now that I've got the check mark, I can see that it's done loading the metadata, and I can continue to work with my data server. So I'm going to click on Netezza now and click on the checkbox to let Cognos Analytics know that this is the schema that I'm going to be working with. Now I can click the Start button. This essentially lets me choose the data that I want to work with. So I've actually created this table called Satisfaction for my satisfaction survey. I'm going to drag it over into the next column, and that tells Cognos Analytics that I'm using the satisfaction table for my data. I could actually drag over multiple tables if I wanted to, and I can use this to join multiple tables, but in this case I'm just interested in this one table. So once I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and save this data module. I'm going to call this as satisfaction data module and click on Save. Okay, so now I've got my data module. I'm going to go back to my main page and create a dashboard. I only need a single page, and let's choose a quadrant dashboard from the templates available. Now I want to choose that data source that I created, so I'm going to go back to my content. Satisfaction data module is the one that I'm interested in. I'll click on Open. You can see I've got all my table definitions here. The first thing I'm going to do is simply drag and drop the columns from my table into the main area. So let's start with satisfaction. By default, it's going to show me an average of the satisfaction in my entire table. I may want to limit that depending on the airline. So I'm going to drag airline onto the next quadrant. So now I can actually filter through the different airlines and get the different satisfaction values depending on what airline I'm looking at. The next thing I want to do is see satisfaction by age range and see how that changes depending on the airline. So I'm going to pull satisfaction and age range into my dashboard. And now I can see I've got a nice chart of satisfaction by age range. And once again, as I change the filter, it will update for each of the different airlines. The last one that we'll take a look at, again, another satisfaction one, is gender. So let's see how satisfaction changes by gender. And to make things interesting, let's make this one into a pie graph. You can see that with Cognos Analytics I have a lot of options to choose from. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is save my dashboard under My Content. I'll save it as Satisfaction Dashboard. All set. So there you have it. I've configured Cognos Analytics to connect to an Netezza data source and created a dashboard based on my table. Thanks for watching.